So we were open and trading 10 months before the first lockdown. So this has definitely been a bit of a speed bump for our first year of trade.
26-year-old Holly Hudson's small business in Keilor East, Victoria, is once again closed after the latest outbreak of COVID-19.
During the first one, we were very optimistic, and I feel like this one is really going to hurt. And if it does continue to go on, then, you know, there's only so many times that we can get back up from this.
Holly got a 50% rent reduction during the first shutdown, but he's worried she won't be able to strike a new deal.
So the agreement that we came to with our landlord was for the first 10-week closure. So we have not revisited that yet. So that will have to be renegotiated. So that's another question mark for us. Owning your own business, you just feel that all your hard work and everything that you've put into it, you might lose it. And that's the scariest thought.
New lockdowns are devastating for confidence, because they create uncertainty about the path of recovery. And for consumers worried about whether they should spend or not, or for businesses worried about whether they should invest or hire, uncertainty causes them to stop activity that they would otherwise do and can push the economy down into a negative spiral.
Across town on Chapel Street, Kaz Benaki's store has been operating since 1982.
There was a tough time in the late 80s, 90s with that recession, but what's happened in this year is just, it's hard to put into words. It's just shattering, actually.
Caterpillar Boutique can still open in the current lockdown, but Kaz says it's almost not worthwhile.
We're not even sure whether we want to trade through July, because at this stage, nobody's coming in. The trade for this month's looking like it's going to be horrendous.
Before the shutdown, the Victorian economy was already recovering more slowly than other states from the pandemic. They had the lowest rate of recovery in spending, the lowest rate of recovery in housing prices, and the lowest rate of recovery in jobs. And this lockdown will set back that recovery even further. We expect that the cost of the lockdown each week in Melbourne and Mitchell Shire will be about $1 billion. And overall, that'll suck out over 6 weeks, $6 billion from the Victorian economy.
$4.50. Thank you very much.
Economist Andrew Charlton says it's already clear that businesses are being hurt by the new round of lockdowns.
We're able to track spending data in real time, so we can see the immediate impacts of the lockdown on spending in Victoria. Already we're seeing total spending in Victoria well below other states, and some of the biggest affected areas of the Victorian economy, cafes, restaurants, entertainment, taking big hits over the last week.
Exclusive new data shows total spending in Victoria is now tracking 12% lower than in the rest of Australia. Despite a rise in community transmissions across the border in New South Wales, the New South Wales Premier says she won't follow the Victorian lead into a broad-based lockdown.
What we have determined is the best course in managing this pandemic is what we call a suppression strategy.
Small business owners in southwestern Sydney are watching the spike in cases closely. Michael Tran says his cafe's takings dropped by 80% during the first round of lockdowns in New South Wales. He had to let go of more than half his staff and could barely afford his bills.
It was quite hard because my partner also was still down from her job. So we both didn't have an income for about 6 weeks.
Michael's cafe is in the middle of the New South Wales hotspot of Liverpool. He says he's already seeing a change in behaviour, even before an official lockdown.
We have noticed sort of general fear in the community at the moment in the last couple of days. 80-90% of our trade comes from corporates. And so when they're gone into lockdown, we pretty much have to shut down the store as well.
But despite knowing a lockdown would cause his takings to drop even further, he thinks New South Wales should go for an elimination strategy.
I definitely prefer us to go into a lockdown so we can get rid of it, as hard as it is, but I think if we keep going into and out of lockdown, it's actually worse off for us, because when we have a cafe, you have a lot of prep for the kitchen, a lot of coffee, a lot of stock, And so if you go into lockdown, it just means you'd have to somehow figure out how to use all that stock up.
The lockdown itself is the primary cause of the GDP reduction, which was of the order in the weeks that it occurred of about 10 to 15% of economic activity shut down because of the lockdowns. But that, of course, is a consequence of the virus. And in the absence of that shutdown, the virus could play out over a longer period of time and cause even more economic damage down the track.
Back in Melbourne, Kaz says he's worried about what this recession will mean for the next generation of small businesses.
We're coming to the twilight of our retail years, but there are people that have just started up who had dreams and aspirations, and this has just blown everything out of the water for them, and I feel for them.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.